Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach and is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? And it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I will have a little bit to talk about that in a moment. I am your host. And today I have a special guest with me, and I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. But if you have any ahas, questions, or appreciations about this podcast, please leave a comment or a voice message. And remember to like, subscribe, share, whatever you can do to help get this podcast out and into the world a little bit more. So now let's get started. All right. So this lovely lady Marigol has been on my podcast previously, and yes. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her. And then I'll tell you what I was talking about with unedited and raw in just a moment, but go ahead.
All right. So yeah, my name is Marigol Era. I'm an Ayurvedic wellness coach, and I'm an unschooling mother as well. I've been unschooling my kids for the past 12 years, and so it's quite another lifestyle that the one that I experienced as a kid. Always super interested in like wellness, spirituality, getting better, transgressing our old patterns and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, when I alluded to just a moment about our unedited and raw, I started our recording, and then all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, my AI has been recording for a little bit and we have a whole bunch of stuff in here. Let's just stop and start over. So I may not edit, but I do have the intelligence enough to say, wait a minute, let's start again.
That's perfect.
All right. So that's just where we are. But one of the things that was fascinating when I talked to you before was all this unschooling was just mind-blowing. And the funny thing is, you know how the universe, God just kind of starts showing you things that are suddenly in your intelligence radar, right?
Yes.
I had never heard the term before I talked to you. And then suddenly I had people that were in different areas and on Facebook. And I even had someone that I talked to at a store, and it was like, they said something about it. And I thought, what the heck? I never knew this existed until Marigol. And now all of a sudden it's everywhere. It's kind of like that. You want this new car and it's red and you've never even seen this car before. And then suddenly they're everywhere.
You just see it all over the place.
That's right. So there you are. But so for those of people who have not watched the first one and may not be familiar what unschooling is, can you just share just a moment, just a little bit about what unschooling is?
Yeah, so unschooling is basically raising your kids without any curriculum. So, and without school, of course, it's unschooling. So, so we're not doing the school thing, but it's not like homeschooling. In homeschooling, you're following a curriculum that is like most of the time the one that they do in school. Right. So the unschooling is like a little bit more radical way of raising our kids, which is it's child-led. So the children are their own person, and so they can experience life through their own point of view, right? And so we are there to support and facilitate their learning as parent. And yeah, so that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know, the fascinating thing about that, well, there's lots of them, but when you were first telling me about it, the thing that I thought was amazing was, you know, as we grow up and we get into the public schools and we get into all these different children that are raised by these different people, some are just kind of, you know, maybe not such good people. And we develop these filters of our life of how we see things from all of this, not from our own personal experience of who we are, but all the things that have come crashing onto us. And so I was fascinated with that. And I think you told me a few stories about things with your kids that I thought, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But I will say that, you know, when people talk about these things and it being radical and it being something that not a lot of people are familiar with, it's like they start saying things, and I know I've heard it when I was hearing some of these other people talking about it, is, well, what happens when they want to go to college? What happens when they want to do this? And will somebody say, well, you never went to school? What will people say? But, and I'll let you answer that in a second, but for me, all of a sudden, when people were saying those things, I thought, well, maybe she's raising people that are not going to work for other people. Maybe she's raising entrepreneurs that have this this intelligence that allows them to find something that their heart desires and really flourish with that. And so it's amazing to think about that. And I'll tell you in a few minutes what this book is, because suddenly the name of it just went right out of my head, that I love. But go ahead and you tell, what would your answer be to that kind of thing?
Yeah. You know, like the first thing for me as parent, and whether you're an unschooling parent or someone that goes in the system or you're homeschooling or whatever the way you're doing your parenting, you know, you're gonna have those worries that are coming up. It's like it's for everyone. Like no one is like sheltered from that. You know, we all go through that, and those are our own triggers. So whether whether you're worried about them being bullied, or if they're going to go to college, or if they're going to have the right education, or if they're going to, like, I don't know, whatever the worry might be, like it's our job as parents to be the guardian of that and not to push that on our kids. So that's the first thing that I want to say about that, because yeah. So, and the second thing, I relate a lot with what you're saying, because for me, and from what I've observed into like what the society is looking like right now, I feel like the next generation, they don't want to really work for somebody else. You know, they want to have like their free time. They want to be like the master of their life. And so I see that in my own kids as well. And so if they were someone that is feeling better working for somebody, like we would facilitate that, you know? And but since they're not, like my oldest daughter already like started like 3 businesses. She's 12. You know, like, and it's experiment, you know, like she's not rich with those businesses. It's just like, you know, like playing around money and how to make it and how to show up in the world, and what is very important for me and how can I show up with that, you know? And so yeah, so I think there will be more of like independent worker, entrepreneur. I don't know, like with the internet right now, like I mean, there's so many openings, you know? And so
and we
it's
really
more,
don't know where
yeah,
this technology thing, or what in the next
yes,
5 years is going to
yes,
be, you know, people's ability to do things. And before I forget, I did
yeah,
remember the name of the book. It's called
yes,
Creating Innovators.
yes,
And have you read that book?
yes, I did.
Yes, yes. So, of course, it's not talking so much about unschooling, but about helping children to develop their own abilities and their joy of learning and, you know, moving forward, which is what you're doing as an
Yeah.
unschooler, right?
Yes, that's what we do. And for me, like, I'm not so much as an advocate for this lifestyle. I mean, like, it's just a personal choice that felt more aligned with us and with the way we're living. So for us, for me and my family, it's important to just like live according to our rhythm, our natural rhythm. And so my kids, like most of the time, they will go to bed like at 1 in the morning and they will wake up at 10. And so being in the school system, and that's their regular like sleep schedule, or like their eating schedule is different. Like one of them won't like she will never breakfast Like, and when she wakes up, she will breakfast like way later in the day, you know? So they're all different. And I want to honor that, you know? So I want to
Yes.
nurture who they are at the core, you know?
Yeah, that's super important because one of the things I talk about a lot with my clients and everything is that because, you know, most people, um, as they get older, have these different issues with food.
Yeah.
They don't know what their natural body rhythms are. They don't know the actual hunger and fullness signals because they've been hijacked with all the different schedules and regimens and
Yes.
some of the foods that we've eaten. And then we did talk a little bit about that before, about
Yeah.
how you help your children to do that. And so it's amazing. And I think your children are so exceptionally gifted with the fact that you are their mother.
Thank you.
Not to say that the other people are not doing a good thing, because they're not doing that, but it's like taking it to another level of helping people to understand their body. And
Yeah.
for instance, like with a lot of my clients, I have to take them off certain foods that they cannot eat for a while because they can't listen to a body that's speaking a different language. And when it's
Yes.
hijacked with certain types of foods, then your body's not speaking English or whatever your language is. It's speaking
Hmm.
Swahili, or it's speaking something that you, and so it's really
Yeah.
hard to have a good way of eating. And I don't like saying diet because diets are not what anybody
Yeah.
needs. Um, it's like a 4-letter word, right? You know, you just don't want any part of that. But it's really cool to hear of someone that's helping their children, you know, develop from a very young age, knowing what their body needs and what it wants, and allowing that to take place.
Yes.
You know, because I can say for me, when my children were young, I was in that mindset of you eat at this time, you eat here, you do
Yeah.
this, you know. And when I got to where I was exploring more about eating and how it affects us, then I started realizing that when children are born, they know when they're hungry and when they're not.
Yeah.
And so when we say it's time to eat, sit here, and then they pick at their food, and then we say, well, you know, you either eat now or you don't get to eat, kind of thing. And I know it's a big thing, right?
Yes.
And so kids learn to, well, I can't listen to my body right now because mom
Yeah.
says if I don't eat right now, she's not going to listen to me when I say I'm hungry. So
Yes.
maybe you share a little bit more about how you decided that that was the way you wanted to teach your children and how that's kind of affected
Yeah.
them, because that's fascinating to me. I wish I had
Yes.
had that. I wouldn't be in the position I am with the yo-yo dieting for the last, I don't even want to say how many years.
Yeah, I've seen my mother go through that, and I've seen how unhappy she was doing that, like eating those celeries like all day, you know,
Yeah.
like hoping to just lose a pound or two, you know. And so for me, like, as I said at the beginning, I'm all about like breaking cycles all the time. Like I want to break those cycles. I want to just like show up at something as something new. And so when I became a parent, like it was from the start, I knew that I was gonna just listen to her, you know? And so I didn't start like the usual, like usually like we start with the cereals, you know, like with the baby, and like you're forcing them a little bit. They're not like super comfortable. And so what I did in the beginning, I was just like putting some vegetable or fruit on our table. And it was just more of a game, you know, just to get to learn what this is, you know, how the texture of it, the taste of it, you know, and just to explore. And then, like, she put it in her mouth, and then, oh, it tastes good. All right, let's go, you know. So I wasn't
So
one to
was
just
this
like,
like, how old was she? Was it pureed food? What was it? I
oh,
mean, fill us.
I didn't do any puree. Like it
Okay.
wasn't, I didn't like, it was too much work for me and it didn't make sense.
Hmm.
So I was it was the beginning. Like she was around like
Like she would suck on a
4.
carrot.
Yes, yes, or a
Okay.
banana, or like some blueberries,
Okay.
or like a melon, or just
Okay.
like to
Okay.
understand what's the texture, and then just like to understand the difference between like breastfeeding and chewing, and just like like showing her how to chew, like just
So
like
you
by,
were saying she was 4 months? I
yeah,
interrupted.
around like
Okay.
5 months, 4 or 5 months, when
Okay.
she started to do that. Like she wasn't like fully eating, but then like the more we introduced new stuff, the more she was like getting used to chewing, and then she just like got a hold of it. And so yeah, so that's how it started. And I have a stepdaughter, and she was like, I didn't raise her from the start, right? She was my stepdaughter. So when we got in touch more personally, like one to one together, she was like around 3, and she had like troubles, a lot of troubles eating. And so it felt like she was disgusted with everything except like hot dogs, or like craft dinner, or like Mickey D's, or that kind of junk food was like, she was used to it. And so when we're
Hmm.
putting new stuff, it was like
It's
grossing
those
her out.
hijacked taste buds.
Yes. And she was like, she actually threw up because the all of that was so foreign for her. Like it was like, or she would
Wow.
just stop eating for a week. Like she would just like butt head, like I'm not gonna eat what you're serving me, and I'm not gonna eat at all. And I was like, shit, like it was like I was worried all the time with her.
Right.
So it wasn't like the same experience I had with my daughter. And so I guess that's, when you got something like that happening to you, for you, it was just like, all right, so with my daughter, like she can eat pretty much any vegetable, anything really. Like she was just like used to experimenting, like using her fingers, and like putting it like all over her body if she wanted to. She was allowed to just experiment with the food, but my stepdaughter wasn't, right? So she was like fed with the spoon, and she didn't like it, and she was like spitting it out, and like she didn't have a really good relationship with food. And so we
Right.
had to build that, and I feel like this brought more awareness to the way we're doing food, because before that it was just natural, right? It was just like
Hmm.
the way it was. But then she had some difficulties, and so we had to do something different, and to bring that awareness, like I did with my baby. And then I did that with her when she was actually older. She was like around 8 or 9, after like, because she was not always with me, right? She was
Right.
like, she was more
And she
with
could
her mother.
unlearn whatever you taught her when she went back.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. And so we got to a point where she was like a lot of the time with us. And so I just sat with her, and I was like, touch your food, try it, put your finger into it. You're disgusted, just go wash your hand before. Let's just try it, like see what you're feeling, and just like understand that this is just a sensation. All right. Like it's not going to bite you. You're not going to die. Like nothing bad's going to happen. It's just the texture. And so she would just like try, to just like put her hand into her food and understand, like, and see the colors, and smell, and just like bring other senses into like the mix. And so the more we did that with her, like we got to a point where she was like able to put them into her mouth, and then just like chew, because she wasn't chewing most of the time. She was just
Mm.
like, putting her tongue on the top of her mouth, just like
Sliding it in.
squash, yeah, and just like swallowing that thing. So when we were giving her vegetable that are like harder, like she wouldn't be able to just like squash it with her tongue. And I was like, well, you got teeth, you know? What do you think those are made for? Not just to have you smile beautifully. And so she was like, all right, so let's touch, like this is sharp. All right, so we can maybe like try to chew the food, and then like make this thing that is easier to swallow. And so it was like a whole like learning curve for her, like that she did a little later in life. And now she's at this point where she's gonna cook stuff for herself. She's got like skills now. She's doing her own like spaghetti sauce, and she's gonna bring some vegetable into it. And like yesterday she was doing a hot cacao, like, and she did it by herself. Like it's she would have never done that.
Mm-hmm.
Never, never, never.
Yeah.
So
That's fascinating, because one of the things that we as Americans typically do not chew our food long enough.
yes.
And the actual beginning of digestion starts in the mouth before you eat.
Yes.
But the thing that I'm beginning to learn too, and you may have experienced this too, and not only that, it starts before, when you're fixing it, when you're cooking it.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I've always, well, I can't say always, I have done
Mm-hmm.
in the past is, I'm rushing through the cooking process.
Yes. Yes.
And it's because you've got, you want to get finished, you want to eat, right?
Yes.
And so I'm learning now to put on some music and smell. I keep envisioning when I talk about this, I envision some of those movies where there's this master chef and they're putting
Yeah.
these up to their nose and they're doing all these things, and I'm starting to try to emulate that.
Yes.
So that I'm enjoying the process of cooking it, even
Yes.
if it's something small and simple. And
Yeah.
then I'm actually getting all my senses, like you were talking about, the feeling of food and everything, and it's learning to smell the things. And then when I'm eating, and this is one of the things I really work with my clients on, is because most people, not only do they eat fast, but they don't even chew as much as they need to, and then they're just wolfing it down because they're trying to get from here to the end of the meal, instead of enjoying the process, tasting the nuances. So I have a client that, with her, I tell her, about all the process of the getting ready to eat. And then she's supposed to close her eyes. And as she's chewing this one thing, not mixing everything up, but chewing this one thing to see if she can figure out what are the spices in it, what stands out the most, and make it more of a game and a pleasurable thing. I told her, I said, if there's somebody sitting at a table near you, have them thinking that you're having the best orgasm that you've ever had in your life from your eating. And it makes me think of that episode in When Harry Met Sally, where she's at the restaurant, and she's pretending to have this orgasm, and somebody says, I'll have what she's having. And it just, it's just opening food up into a different way than we are typically doing things. And so I love that you are having them, not having the orgasm part, but still, it's almost the same thing. They just don't know that.
Yes, exactly. A little too young yet.
Yes. Don't tell them that part. Wait till they're older.
But yeah, it's so important to make cooking a ritual and not a chore, because when you do that, like, eating is a chore as well, that you got to get through it, and it's just like not enjoyable, and it just like brings a lot of trauma in your own body without you even knowing, but the digestive system will be shocked, like, by you eating like that. And then you're going to feel sluggish, or you're going to have like gas, or, you're going to be constipated. Like, there's going to be like some repercussion of like with the way you're eating. It's huge. In Ayurveda, we always say that, how huge it is to enjoy your food, how huge it is to make a ritual out of cooking, and smelling and like prepping our food. It's not like, it's not something that we're necessarily used to with our schedule, like in America. Like, if you go to Europe, like, they're gonna do that like naturally. They're all over that. It's so different over there. But here, it's like, it's go go go, we need to work, like, it's like.
And really wonder when that started in the US, because people, nobody here didn't come from somewhere else. It's all, everybody migrated here, right? We weren't well, we could be born here, but our generations back, it all started somewhere. So the Italians that are here, they had that
Yes.
lifestyle, but it kind of gets moved away from. And I wonder
Yeah.
if it's, from people working in the fields and they only had a certain amount of time, but usually the
Yeah.
women were the ones in there cooking and doing all that stuff. So I'd really be curious to know when it started being adopted as of, maybe it was when people started the age of working in factories, that kind of thing,
Yes.
because that was
Yes.
more of a regimented, kind of thing.
Yes,
But
and the women were like involved, like when they were like the wars, like the women needed to go to work to,
yeah,
like
yeah.
do those
So that's
canning.
maybe when the whole process started changing.
Yeah,
And one of the things that I've learned, and with Ayurveda, you can probably say this as well. So I'll ask you a question to see if I'm correct in this from my
sure.
learnings. Um, is that if you're not enjoying the process and you're not chewing your food and you're not taking the time for your meal, that your body actually is not registering what you're eating. And so
Yeah,
therefore it doesn't utilize all of the nutrients of the food. But not only that, that's one of the reasons why you get hungry really quick after, because it doesn't even, your belly may be full, but
yeah,
it still doesn't realize that you've eaten this food, and especially if it's not such good food for you. But is that
yeah.
what you find in Ayurveda as well?
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that like it's like the intent of eating is as huge as what we're eating. Like we're
Yeah.
always in Ayurveda, my main teacher was always saying, you can eat that burger, eat it with love, like you said, like have an orgasm, like make love to your burger and enjoy it so much, and you will get more benefit than eating a salad like super quickly or like eating it, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate that salad, it tastes so disgusting. And then the intention you're bringing into like this ritual of eating has like a lot of impact on the digestive system, that's for sure.
Yeah. And how the satiated you are in the process. Because I
Oh
will
yeah.
say, before I became a health coach, I will say I didn't understand the difference between satiated and satisfied.
Oh yeah.
And so that to me is powerful
Yeah.
to understand the difference. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I can go a little bit on that, like to be fully and to go like around with the kids, when like I've seen that with my kids. They're so cute. Like they will eat something they really really enjoy, and then like they'll finish their bowl and then like my oldest daughter will be like, it was so good. I'm full at the moment, but I would really enjoy just a little bit more. And I'm like, just go ahead,
Mm-hmm.
take a little bit more. You don't have to take like another full ball,
Right,
but if
right.
you want like to have like that full satisfaction of like you feel like you need a little bit more and you're kind of full, yeah, like she can go for that. Well, of course she can go for that, but then after that, like I will ask her, how does it feel in your body, how do you feel like after that? And so sometimes she will be like, all right, so it was too much, or
Yeah.
like this was perfect,
Yeah.
so
Sometimes I've
it's
had
all.
that one more bite and it was like, oh, that sent me over the edge.
Yes, exactly. And in Ayurveda, there's like a story that we have like a janitor inside of us, right? And so this janitor will work a specific amount of time or like a workflow, right? And so if you're giving it too much, it won't clean it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that becomes ama in Ayurveda, which is toxins that are going to be like in your body somewhere, it's going to go where it needs to go to just like be stored. So whether it's in fat or, like, and then it's going to be on your hip or on your belly or like whatever, and so there's like this saying in Ayurveda, so you eat, and when you burp, when you feel that little burp coming, and there will be one, and then you just like stop at the first one, then you're a yogi. And then if you stop at the second one, you're like an Epicurean, so you like a pleasure, and then if you stop at the third one, you're a masochist. and so and so it's like it's like teaming up with that little janitor. So when you feel that first burp coming up, you're like, all right, so where am I? Like, should I eat a little bit more? Like, am I like in a Epicurean way of living at this moment, or I'm okay being a yogi and like like just like
Yeah.
being enlightened with my food right now. And so it's always a matter of choosing and working with that little janitor. I really like that story. I tell it to my kids all the time, and they're very aware of that. And sometimes they will say, all right, so I'm at my second burp, but it's too good, and then they will feel full after that, and they will be like, all right, I'm full, and then I can, like, I don't know, just like assume, own it. You can
Mm-hmm.
own it. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of being aware of what's going on. And with that story, it helps the kids to understand that satisfaction, whether like you're satisfied or you're too full, or like, so I really like that story. I really, and the kids they're responding to it a lot. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love that. And for me, it's like as I've learned and I know what it feels like when I've done that one extra bite, or how it feels when I've decided I wanted to go ahead and eat something, because it's like, if you know why you want to eat it, and it's not to fill some kind of emotional void, or if
yes.
it's not from boredom, and it's not from all these emotional things, but it's just because that looks delicious and you want to eat it,
Yeah.
you really become a food snob, because I have felt that way before, and I think, oh my God, this is going to be so good. It's going to be so good. And then I put it in my mouth and I think, I'm quite disappointed,
Oh.
and I have, in my past, when I really, really, really struggled, I would have ate it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as you get more in tune with things, you think, well, you know, I have amazing taste buds and I want that orgasmic feel from this, and
Yes.
I'm not going to get it from this. So I'll
Yes.
wait and I'll get something else. And the other thing I had to really work hard with, and I think um, for me, and I think some people, especially if they have like um, food addictions,
Mm.
or if they may be, um, have a propensity for some kind of, you know, thing to do with their body image and food, and they have all
Mm-hmm.
these things, that sometimes by saying, I'm going to go ahead and eat some more because it's there and I know how good it tastes. Sometimes that could send me over the edge, not only in being full, but send me to the place where I would eat and eat and eat and eat just because it's there. So one of the
Yeah.
things I had to start telling myself, early on, when I started seeing all these habits I had,
Mm-hmm.
was that even though I know it's really, really good, and that I'm going to love the hell out of it if I take another plateful, because it wouldn't be a bite, it was a plateful, that I can have this again.
Yeah.
If I say no to this, it doesn't mean I can never have this again.
Yes.
And I'm sure that I developed a lot of these issues with this because, as a kid, it was like, you might not get it again. And so you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to eat whatever it was that maybe it was taboo or whatever, and you weren't
Yes.
allowed to make those decisions. So,
Yes.
when thinking of that, when your kids are in the middle of, one more bite, or they see something that they remember it was really, really good, how are they able to, I guess, tread those waters? Is it ever an issue where they would eat something and overindulge to their detriment, I guess, in a way? Does that happen? And if it does, how do they cope with that and learn from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Um, there was a moment in the process of raising our kids where we started to give them money for them to go to the grocery. When we were going to the grocery, they would go and buy themselves some stuff that we weren't like allowing. It wasn't like that we weren't allowing it, but it was like, it wasn't a choice for us. Like I wouldn't go to the grocery and buy like popsicles or like, you know, like that kind of candy-ish frozen stuff.
Kind of stuff.
Yes, Pop Tarts or like anything like that frozen, like full of sugar. Like it just wasn't something that I was having in my house. But they're curious, they're kids, you know, the marketing is well done for those products. Like, I mean, the colors are there, like it looks amazing, you know. And so we started to give them just a few bucks, like $15, right? So they could just go to the grocery and buy those stuff and go at it, right? Because they wouldn't, they just didn't experience that in our house. It wasn't like something that we actually bought. Like if we wanted to have something sweet, I would cook like a cake or something, you know, but it was always like homemade, you know. And so, but you don't want them to be restricted. That's my goal. Like I need them to, I want them to experience stuff even though they're not like aligned with my principle or my values. And so instead of like being the one in charge of like saying no all the time, because that felt yucky, we decided to give them a little bit of money. And so they would go and they would buy those stuff and they would fool themselves up like in one day, like the whole box of cookies, you know. And then just like being there with them and just like sharing how does it feel, how does it feel in your body right now, are you, was it worth it, or maybe you could have just ate one and that would have been satisfying for you, you know. But it's just like that thing you just said where you're kids and you don't know when the next thing is going to come, and it's a human reflex to just like, you know, fool yourself up. It's like from like ancestral like, from
When
a long
years
long
ago
time ago, right?
they've killed the fatted calf or whatever, and they ate
They
it
would,
until it was gone because
exactly.
It wouldn't last, you know.
Yes, we didn't have any fridge. We didn't have like any like
Yeah.
conservation
Yeah.
product or whatever, you know. So we just like full ourselves up. So it's like it's natural in a way, but it's not helping us in right now in our lifestyle where we're not like fighting for our food. We're not like, so it's not like we need to evolve a little bit. But I could see that this I don't know, this ancestral habit was still there. And so they went through that, but by experiencing it, they understand. By letting them go through that with love and support and without judging them, the result of that is pretty amazing to me, because it's all an experiment. I've never done that. Like, this is my first time raising those kids, you know, and there won't be another time. And so as we're learning together as we're going, you know, but like that was so amazing for me to understand that when they're going through an experience in their body, they will remember that moment where they ate. Like I remember my oldest daughter, when she was it was her birthday, she was 7, I think, and she asked me a cake that I would never allow, you know. It was like way too much, like I would never buy that. And so it was those pre-wrapped little kind of cakey stuff. I don't know,
Like
I don't
little
think
Debbie
they,
kind of things.
yes, like those finger,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Twinkies.
stuff with, yes, exactly, like stuff with cream, that kind of stuff. But it's not exactly like that, but kind of. But imagine like a cake made of Twinkies, like just like full of them, like 50 of them, and then you just cut a slice, you know. And she was so excited, and she started to eat that, and then she felt nauseous, and she was like, this is not good, this is not cool. And then we just, we just threw away the whole thing because it was so disgusting. But she needed to go through that, and by me not judging her and saying yes to her, it just like imprinted this experience into her cells. And then she's like, well, I'm never going to do that again. You know, it was not good. But if I want to have like this cookie box, I'm not, it's the same thing. I'm not going to eat the whole thing. I'm going to eat two, three, maybe. I don't know. Like, how do I feel about it? You know?
Yeah.
Just like be aware, you know, that those things can be a pleasure, but if you're overdo that, it's not a pleasure anymore. It's a pain.
Right. And not being judged is huge, because I will say And I keep referring back to my life because that's
Yeah.
really the only thing I can do.
Mhm.
But for me, there were many times that I binged eat, but then I would hide the evidence, throw it
Yes.
away. I would do things. And then I
Yes.
do know someone in my life that she used to take candy stuff and hoard it in her room and
Yeah.
secretly eat it,
Yeah.
because she didn't want to be judged. And
Yeah.
so it's, especially if you've had struggles with food and then you become one of these people that are hiding things from other
Hmm.
people. It's not like they can't tell that you're putting on weight astronomically, and they're thinking, well, she doesn't eat anything. How's that possible? But it's really cool that your kids are getting to experience that they can experiment with that stuff
Yes.
and not be judged. Now, let
Yeah.
me just ask you really quickly. So
Yes.
this is a hypothetical thing, okay?
Cool.
So, how would you have handled it now if her experience with that cake had been that she sat there and just ate and ate and ate, threw up, came back and ate and ate and ate? Would there be like something that you would just let her keep going through that process? And I know this is
Mm.
hypothetical, so it's not like
Yeah.
this is what I do, but or is it something that you would say,
Mm.
okay, we're going to stop here and let's kind of maybe have a discussion about what's going on,
Yeah.
and what I'm
Yeah.
asking?
Yeah. Yes. So
Okay.
if there would be like something, like a really bad habit with food that would be coming up like that,
Hmm.
I would definitely sit with them and talk, because like this is painful, this is hurting them. And so it would never, I wouldn't just like let them go through it, like, I don't know. Like you say, it's
It's a hypothetical,
hypothetical.
right?
So I don't know exactly, but
Yeah,
like my
because I
first
guess what was
my
coming up to me
yeah.
is because you know I've said I've been on the diet roller coaster and all that stuff my whole life,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, like if you go back and you look at my pictures of when I was my fattest, and there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of them, because it goes up and down and up and down. I can almost correlate my heaviest times with something very stressful that was going on in my
Yes.
life. And so I was eating my emotions and I didn't really know how to deal with things. So it was just coming to my mind that, as kids, a lot of times, maybe yours don't deal with a lot of this stuff because they've been unschooled. But I know a lot of times in kids, because it starts there, they start trying to figure out how to feel better, and they do it
Yes.
with food.
Yes.
And so I was just wondering if something like that could happen with your kids and how you would redirect that emotional part of the eating.
Yes. Well, for us in our house, it's very important to be aware of our emotions and how like we're feeling in the moment. So if we're triggered, there's always like discussion and like, let's go through it. Like, let's see what's going on really, like. And so by doing that as, a habit almost, like
Hmm.
my kids, they know if they're triggered, like, we're going to talk about it. So if there's something coming up and they want to self-soothe with food, it's just a matter of like putting awareness into it and like understanding what's beneath it, and so it's just like to allow them to be able to speak about it. So you want to feel what, like my stepdaughter the other day, it's not as like drastic as like throwing up after eating, but she's here 6 months of the year, and then she goes with her mother 6 months of the year. And so it's been a while since she hasn't really like seen her mother, and then she started to want to eat that Mickey D's because she associate that
With her
restaurant
mother. Yeah.
with her mother. And so she was craving those McNugget or whatever, And so I was like, all right, let's sit. You want that for what? Let's understand, right? You can go after, like, if you choose to go after and take your money and eat Mickey D's, that's perfect. All right. But just let's do that in awareness. So and then just like trying to guide her, because I knew it was because of that. And so I was like, all right, so you can go ahead and eat that. And also you can just call your mother and
Mm-hmm.
have a chat with her and tell her that you just miss her. It doesn't, like, it's not such a big deal to just express that, and you're going to feel better, and she's going to send you stuff love, even though she's not with you and she's not going to hug you. Like, you can still feel that she cannot wait to see you. She's like, she misses you as well. And so she actually went to eat that. And then she called her mother. And it felt like something that was like balanced a little bit more. She wasn't just like taking everything into
Mm.
Mickey D's, because she understood that she was just in need of like mother. And I'm not her mother. So it's not the same thing,
Right,
like
right,
it's just not. Um, so she really needed to have that. So it's just a matter of understanding where it comes from. And then after that, if you choose to act on it, as like, you're just not going to have the same relationship with it. you're,
right.
you're not you're not going to stuff your face as much when you know that there's a deep need of like mothering love, like being
Right.
cuddled up with her mother with like blankets and like watching a movie together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what she wanted. And so it's like, so it's always a matter of like talking about it and not like getting the brain to go to those associations. So if I eat Mickey D, I'm gonna feel better. And so when you break that circuit in your brain to just like rewire it to something else. So I
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat Mickey D because I miss my mother. So whether I choose that or not, I can take an action to just like switch lane right now and just to call her. And so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I think you and I talked about this before when I was talking about my food issues. There was a time in my life where I was miserable in at home. And that's when I decided on my way home, I would stop by Burger King and get a Whopper and a
Yes.
fries, and I would get
Yes.
more than one, and I would eat all that stuff on the road, and then I would stop and I'd throw this evidence away, right? And then because I just needed to be more grounded in my
Yes.
life. And then I had another time where I was being separated from a child that I loved, and I just craved that hug and that sweetness. So I stopped every day when I had to drop her off. I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and got more
Mm,
than one donut and would eat
yeah.
it on the way home and throw the evidence away.
Yes.
And it was like, once I got into becoming a health coach and stuff, that's when I started recognizing
Mm-hmm.
that when I was going down this little rabbit hole of wanting certain things, that I could correlate it back to what I was thinking and what I was
Mm-hmm.
needing.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had anybody in my life that was dealing with those things,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I was the only one, or I thought I was the only one. It may
Yeah.
be that there were other people, but nobody talked about it. It was
Yes.
taboo. And
Yes.
so the thing that I love about having these kinds of discussions is that the people to realize that not only is it not taboo, it's good to
Mm.
talk about, because when
Yeah.
you do, you can come to a realization, like you did with your stepdaughter, of this is why I'm choosing to do this, and what would I do in place of it if I chose to, and
Yes.
recognizing that you still have a choice. You can choose to go ahead and get that hug, call your mom, or anything. Like, I could have picked up the
Yeah.
phone and called somebody or done different things,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that there was another way to deal with those things. That's what I love about these conversations is,
Yes.
and it opens things up in me too, because no
Mm.
matter if you've ever dealt with these kinds of things, they still show up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, now I have the ability to say, well, wait a minute, I'm wanting to order this huge ice cream thing and pay an astronomical amount to have it delivered to my house and tip them and everything, and the thing's only $5, but once I pay all these things, this thing's going to cost me 20. And why am I wanting this shit? And I had a time a couple of months ago. It was like I was sitting and I was thinking, oh, I would love some ice cream. And I got on the app and I wasn't even thinking. I got on the app, put it in the order and everything, and I started looking at it. I thought, okay, why am I wanting this? Why am I willing to pay $20 for this little 2-scoop cup of ice cream? And I thought, well, this is crazy. What is it? And I decided, okay, I canceled the order and decided to meditate and breathe and get
Yeah.
into me and figure out what it was that was going to fill that void that I was wanting that ice cream to fill. And I
Yes.
think things have gotten so accessible that it's really
Yes.
easy to have that thing come to you,
Yes,
I don't even have to get
exactly.
out now and go get it. But that cost was what made me think, well, wait a minute, this is stupid. So what is it that in me right now is needing this? So
Yes.
it's now being able to have that conversation with me.
Yeah, it's all about that. It's all about like being aware of like the true experience at in the moment, And by being aware, that's where you can actually have power because you're in like the present moment. You're not like gonna order that because back then you felt like that and then you want to try to just like revive like that. You want to just like go again into that feeling because we love that so much. Our brain loves that so much. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be aware and to be able to just like cut the chase and then instead of just like going through the same way that we're used to, it's just like a matter of like shifting just a little bit. And that by doing that, you create change and you create like something new that feel more aligned with who you are, and then you can breathe for real, you're not
Yeah.
like
Even know
attached
who
to.
you are. That's a
Yes,
big thing,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because food can become an addiction really
Oh, big
fast.
time. It's like
Yes.
I was sharing this morning with someone that they've done these studies where they took and when you eat sugar and
Yeah.
they look at the brain, the
Mm-hmm.
same receptors light up
Mm-hmm.
that a person that's done heroin, those
Yes.
same receptors light up.
Yeah,
And
I've
it
seen that.
becomes that same kind of high euphoric addiction.
Yeah.
And I've got this workshop coming up at the end of the month, and it's called Sweet Deception. It's about sugar. I don't know if you've
Nice.
seen my post about it and
I love
everything,
that.
but one of the things I talk about in there is the polarity of food. So it's like night and day, salt and sweet.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's all these different things that are going on in us. And if we're craving one thing, it's because there's something that's missed. And so
Yes.
now it's learning how to recognize in your craving
Yeah.
what that means about what you're needing to feel. And it's because
Yes.
they don't correlate in the same way. So sometimes you're wanting something sweet, but it's not necessarily that sweetness is missing in your life. It's there's something else. And so
Yes.
I talk about those kinds of things in this master class that I'm
That
doing.
is cool.
And so it's really cool when you can see what's happening and have some knowledge about, well, let me think about this in a different way. And
Yes.
most of us are blindly going through, and let's face it,
Mm-hmm.
the food industry has become, well, it hasn't become in the beginning, it always has been this way, but it's even more exponentially this way. They know what, like you said about the commercials, they know
Yes.
exactly how to
Yes.
trigger us to eat, the things to say, the pictures to have, and and then the amount of sugar and all in the food really hijacks your whole body and makes you
Yes.
crave it more, just like the heroin. You get
Yeah.
rid of sugar, what's going to happen is your body starts telling you, okay, you got to have some more sugar, and it's you start craving all these things. And so I love
Mm.
that even though your kids have had these moments where they've overindulged in something, I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think their system has become hijacked like most of us
Yeah.
to have this polarity of food pulling at us and draining us all the time.
Yeah, it's quite different to actually be there for them. And it's a learning curve as me. I mean, like I needed to do that for myself as well, you know, because I was raised like you know, I was raised in like a school system. You eat
When the bell
when
rings,
we
ding,
tell
ding,
you,
ding.
yeah, when we tell you to eat, you
Pavlov's
can
dog.
eat, you know. Yes, exactly. And then for me too, food became an addiction of like something that I needed to have to suit myself, because I was feeling lost and no adult in my life were able to listen to what was going on. And so my mother wasn't really caring or nurturing with me, and so I needed to have that sweet thing, you know. And I went at it to respond to my need with food, you know? And I was exactly like that too, like going and binging stuff and just like trying to hide all of the evidence. And then when you're doing that as a kid, you don't want to get caught. Like there's like a big
Guilt.
I don't know. Yeah, the guilt trip is like huge because you don't want to be like, I don't know, like cut by your parents and then they're gonna ground you or something. Like it's no good, you know? It's like shit. Like
It
there's
feels
no
like life
issue.
or death at some points,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yes, exactly. And so it's just not fun. So I needed to heal that for myself and to just like reconciliate my relationship with food. And I feel like my kids are always like they're always like the beacon, you know. Like every time I need to go through something, like they're just there showing me the way, you know.
That's
Like
right. That's right.
so to take that as to say yes to that, it brings my parenting to another level where I'm not just their parent, I'm also um their student.
Yeah.
You know, I can like there's a relationship that is building where it's not like you do as I say because this is it, you know. And so by building this relationship, I feel like they feel supported and nurtured in a way that they don't need to go with the food. So their relationship with food is quite different from the one that I used to have with food, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm.
So I will ask you, what is there something that maybe I haven't asked a question, or there's something that's, as we've been talking, that's popped in your mind that you kind of want to get off your chest, or you want to share
Mm.
with people that they might gain something from? Is there something in particular that's coming up for you that you would want to share?
Yeah, there was something about addiction because, as I just said, like food can become addiction really quickly because we're trying to nurture stuff, or we want to fill that void, or we want to escape our reality, you know? And there's like, I feel like every human can like are addicted to some kind of thing, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
with food, it can be tricky because we need it.
Yeah, you
We,
can't
we
just
need
stop
it.
eating.
So, yeah, exactly. You can stop heroin, like you can
Yeah.
stop weed, you can stop drinking alcohol or whatever, you know. But to stop eating, it's like it's tricky. So it really needs a lot of awareness because it's not something we can escape.
Right.
It's
Right.
something we need to understand and to learn how we are and who we are and what's our relationship with the food and how can we not pass this on to our kids, like,
Yeah.
you know, like to just like move with them and not let them have all of our trauma because we're not able to deal with it. So just like,
Right.
but it's like this addiction, it's a tricky one.
I
And
agree. I
it's,
agree.
yeah, it's just a matter of like being more aware and to just like understand that when you're trying to put something in your mouth, just understand where it comes from. Is
Mm-hmm.
it because you're hungry, or is it because you crave something, or is it because you're sad, or is it because you would love to have like a man that loves you, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
why is it? And then address that before you eat that. And probably you won't need to eat that after. Maybe
Right.
you
Right.
will, but if you are, just don't punish yourself with it, you know, just surrender to the fact that you understand it and you might need it still at this moment, and just like release that. And then when it comes up again, like at one point you won't need it. That's
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah.
But just to be aware of why you're putting that thing in your mouth.
Perfect advice. one of the things that I tell my clients a lot of times, well, let me say about the addiction thing, is that nobody in their right mind would tell a heroin addict, well, you can only have this much,
Yes.
yeah, just do this much, and then you wait, and then a little bit later you can have this
No.
much. So it's like crazy. And that's why I absolutely, and I'll step on some toes when I say this, but I hate the dieting advice that says you graze all day long. You eat, you eat 3 meals, and then you have these many snacks, and they tell you all these parameters, and maybe that works for them. Maybe that works for some people. And I think the reason the diet industry is so big is because there are so many different people in the arena telling you what worked for them. And they make it out like that's going to work for everybody. Not true.
Not true.
But and I totally lost my train of thought of what I was going to tell you.
We were talking about addiction.
Okay. Oh, I know. When it comes to my clients, one of the things that I tell them is sometimes, that one of the things is sometimes where we think we're hungry and it's just we're a little dehydrated, right?
Yes.
So I tell them, if they weren't aware till just suddenly that they were wanting something, and it's not an emotional thing, to drink some water, wait 20 minutes. And if in 20 minutes they still desperately want that thing, go ahead and eat it. But that puts you in the driver's seat of going through and analyzing, or not analyzing, but visiting yourself and saying, why is it that I'm doing this? And so you can make a conscious decision. Because when we really get in trouble is when we're unconsciously doing all these behaviors.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly. I feel exactly like that. I mean, when you don't know you're doing something that is bad for you, like just keep on doing it,
That's
you
right.
just don't know. And I have some empathy for yourself. I mean, like, it's okay not to know, but it's okay also to just like step up and just like understand there's a problem there, and that you can address that. You don't have to stay in that non-awareness state. You can actually step up, but have like some empathy for the person in you that didn't know. It's okay,
Right.
we're not almighty, like we're all humans.
It's a good thing we're not, because
right.
hey, life would be pretty damn boring then, right?
I know, right?
But I was on a podcast earlier, and she asked me a couple of questions, and one of the things that I told her was that the reason that it's important to have people like us in their lives is because we don't know what we don't know, which is kind of what you were just saying.
Exactly. Yes.
And so a lot of times we may think we know what we're supposed to do, but we can't seem to find the strength within us to make different decisions. And that's why it's so good to have, like, you're an Ayurvedic coach and a life coach as well. Am I remembering right? Okay.
Yes.
And then me, I'm a health and I'm a life coach. And so a lot of times it's like, you can't see your own shit, you just see the results of it. And not necessarily how you got there. And so it takes somebody from the outside looking up above and saying, hey, this is really important. If you will change this thing, or you'll change this, or you'll tweak this, let's just be aware. Then it's like mind-boggling what difference they can make in their lives, because it's great to try to figure things out on your own, but it's a longer process. Like I said, I will not even share. Well, I don't guess it matters. I'm 64. And the first time I went on a diet, I was in the 3rd grade. If that tells you how long it's been something in my life. And I've been a health and life coach now, I guess about 5 years. And I still struggled in the beginning of that process too, because,
for sure,
it's not an overnight thing. It's a 1% change. If you can create a 1% change in your life, then, exponentially over a little bit of time, you're going to see some amazing results.
Exactly.
And that's where we come in, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We're like the little mirror you guys need to to just really see another part of yourself. And because we're seeing ourselves with some glasses on, and people that are seeing you, they're seeing you with other glasses, the new glasses.
Yes, that's right. Seeing it from a different perspective and being
Exactly.
able to hover above and say, don't go to the right, go to the
Yeah.
left, stop. You'll get there if you go to the right, but it's going to take you years,
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. As always, I
As
love
always,
talking to you.
same.
Even if I had to stop and start in the beginning, it's all good.
It's
It's
all
all
right.
good.
It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
But thank you again for being here and sharing your wisdom. And I'm hoping that a lot of people that maybe are new parents or they haven't even become parents yet can, it can be extreme and they may not want to adapt all the things or adopt all the things that you do. But it's
Yeah.
like putting it in their mind that, oh my God, I can decide how I want to raise my child. I do not have
Yes.
to go with what everybody else says.
Exactly.
And I
Yes.
love that you open that possibility up for people. And so I
Yeah.
hope that people that watch have learned enough to know that if they want to start a generation of people that are not all the time in
Mm.
their heads about food, and it just
Mm-hmm.
be a natural process of eating to thrive and to live,
Yeah.
it's possible.
Yes, it is.
Everybody else we have to correct, but let's start
It
out in a
is.
good way.
But it's so true. It's so cool to be able to start that with kids, whether you're going to school or whether you're not, like, it doesn't matter. But the food thing, like, we all need it and we all need to address that. So,
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And I will leave everybody with this little phrase that I have started to adopt, and I love it. The best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you
yes,
creating, right?
I love that. Amazing.
All right. So do you have anything you want to say at the end of this amazing episode?
Uh, what do I want to say other than that? Yeah, I mean, just the thing that I repeat myself often these days, it's just like, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
It's just not that serious. Let's just play with it. Like, it's when we take ourselves so seriously, it's just like, it's so hard. We want to try so hard and we want to control everything. It's just like, just let it go and just surrender to the experience and just trust in the process that it's going to be okay, and not to think of it like it's so serious and like it's a matter of life or death.
Definitely,
That would be the
definitely.
way I want to finish on that.
Okay, cool. So I'll say it again. The best way to predict the future is create it. So let's create something good.
Yes.
Mwah.
Mwah, amazing.